Howdy. Happy Wednesday, folks. So I'm here to do what I usually do, which is to be that triggered lib progressive woke that just can't let things go, according to Doug. Now, my title and thumbnail are there to kind of point out that I think Doug is evolving, not necessarily in a lot of positive ways, as the rigors of this election take its toll. And somebody had mentioned in the live chat before starting that this is his first one. In a way, it is. This is the first one he can vote in, at least according to him. But not his not his first rodeo, though. I mean, he's been around. He's been in the United States for at least 10 years, and even if he was not in the United States before that, oftentimes I've found Canadians are more informed about our political elections than Americans are. Anyway, what we're going to get into here is going to be this is his last live when he's been doing some shorts and stuff, which I'll probably cover a little bit if I can intersperse them in here. There's one he did about me, which I found kind of precious. But then there's another, the one that I really wanted, I can't find. Oh, I did find it. Okay, there it is. So I'll probably jump into those a little bit. In fact, maybe I'll do that now. Let's say hello to a few people in the comments and then get some of this stuff switched over. 8:30 to Awesome is here. Good to see you. Thanks for joining me live. Yeah, 8:30 was saying it's his first one. Raphael's here. Good to see you. AR, nice to see you. Good evening. Michael Deaton is here. Hello, and thank you for that reminder. Secular Pagan Mum is here. Good to see you as well. Fabio is here. I'm still flabbergasted by some crap he wrote last time about ROI and diminishing taxes, which would generate higher fiscal income and the more money and more inflation dogma he tried to carry on. Yeah, it was getting kind of weird. I'm glad I kind of stopped where I was. I mean, it was already 3 hours long. So I studied economics for about 25 years, and that was bonkers about 25 years ago. Aaron Massa is here. Good to see you. Let's see. John is here. Good to see you. Ascalon is here. Evening all. I'm new to PineCreek. Only thing I know about him is Titan has been using him as a chew for a while. Yeah. I think Titan probably. I think he gets under Doug's skin. So maybe it's not the election. Maybe it's just his exposure to Titan's conversations. I still have a soft spot for PineCreek after his epic trolling of Ding Dong. Agreed, that was epic. And the interesting thing is that it was a video that I didn't cover. He was he called into the line, and maybe I'll cover this one tomorrow. I've got a few days off, so I might binge on this. I might disappear for 4 days. It's just going to kind of depend on how the schedule works out. But he talked to him for about a half an hour, and there's a part where he starts kind of, it sounds a little bit whiny, like he seemed a little bit hurt that, now that he's kind of gone on some of these political tangents, he's not getting a lot of credit, and he feels like he was used by people who were hurt by Christians and hurt by bad church experiences, and they were rooting for PineCreek and praising him when he would do things like own Ding Dong or something like that. But then once they heard his like kind of tough love, bootstrap at you basic beige Betty kind of economic theology, whatever it is, they were like, oh, okay, that's less than inspiring. And he seems to know. I mean, I was just kind of waiting for him to say, like, no, please clap. Like, no, that's not gonna. We can appreciate what you do over here, and not like what you do over here. I'm a big fan of George W. Bush's paintings. I'm not going to get into what I think of him as a president right now. It's take a while. Crafty Keel is here. Good to see you, Crafty. Hello. Long time no see. Ryan is here. Nicole Wilson is here. Vic Lit is here. Good to see you all. Good to see you. Is it Sap or Odd? Am I pronouncing that right? I think I am. Maybe I'm not. Last time he claimed he has really interesting people calling in. Hope this proves the claim. I'm hoping I get to the people calling in. Yuki Okami's here. Good to see you. Peter Guns is here. God Equals. Goldstein. Good to see you all. My darkened understanding think I was on this live. Actually, he was talking about you at the very beginning of this video, and I kind of pushed past it. So because he was saying something at the beginning of this video, the link to this main one is in there. The very first thing he's talking about is he's telling my darkened understanding to get his wife on there or something. Yeah. What's Dougie up to now? I mean, more of the same. Spooky's here. Hello. Coco's is here. Good to see you both. And I think that's just about everybody. If I missed anybody, I apologize, but I'm going to get started. Pastor Gatorcoot, good to see you. Yeah, I know how that goes. I've only had to help take care of 2-year-olds. I'm not a parent myself, but an uncle to many. And yeah, 2 is a tough age. You kind of turn into a zombie, even just helping out sometimes, depending on the kid. But it's good to see you. Glad you're stopping by. Okay, so let's get into this one and see what he's going to do. I'm going to leave that one right where it is. Let's stop that screen. Let's present. Okay, here it is. So he put this one up today, and this one's kind of weird. So it's how to get rid of the entitlement mindset, asking a student to thank him, thank me. Okay, let's go.
Feel the need to thank me?
Please let me know if you can hear this. Sometimes shorts get a little tricky.
No, not particularly.
Why aren't you thanking me for paying for your education? You said you get federal grants, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Where does the federal government get its money mostly from?
But wait, the question was, do I feel like the need to thank you? And the answer is no.
I think you
incorrect.
Ought to. You should thank me publicly for putting you through school.
Well, sure. Thank you, Doug.
You're very welcome, Landon. I pay a lot in taxes, federal income taxes, and it's people like me who pay the majority of federal income taxes in this country, which allow you to get grants to go to university. So thank you for saying thank you. Would you feel the need to thank?
So a couple things to point out there, because I of course had to post a comment, and I wrote this up here at the top. I said, so what's the solution to Doug's entitlement mindset? Demanding thanks from a college student for the existence of federal education aid reeks of entitlement. How did Doug ever get over it? What was the video cut? Was the video cut short somehow? Maybe the rest of the conversation was pretty decent, but that just kind of, well, this person down here said, why do you think he should thank you? I don't expect to be thanked by people when my tax money goes to funding their children's schools, their public roads, or their needed police investigations for the crimes they were victims of. Also, why hasn't Elon Musk thanked me for the government subsidies he received for all of his businesses? That is a good question from Trappa Time. Let's see. PineCreek says because it's good manners. But it's inappropriate, actually. It's not good manners. It's inappropriate. I think anyone who gets subsidies should thank the wealthy who pay most of the taxes as well. Okay, but there's a problem with that, right? Like, so I've mentioned this before, and this is a favorite stalking horse for conservatives. Like if you think about it, even if a billionaire can get away with like cutting their top rates of tax down a little bit, they're still going to pay more in total money into the piggy bank than all these poors and wage slaves out there. Like, yeah, that's true. But let's keep something in mind. He said something at the beginning of that video, like, where's most of that federal money coming from? It's not coming from those taxes. There's a Pew article that I found a couple hours ago before going online. In 2023, the United States government took in about $2.3 trillion worth of revenue. About 48%, just a little over 48% of that came from individual income taxes, federal income taxes. So it's less than half. And then you have to break down the proportions of who's paying more out to what. And disproportionately, the super wealthy, if they've got income taxes that they're claiming, and not just other, like capital gains tax, because capital gains tax aren't going to be on that side of the equation. Those are going to be on the other. Those are going to be in the 52 or 51 point whatever side of it. That's the bulk. I mean, it's close. It's almost 50-50. But income taxes do not make up the majority of the tax revenue the government takes in. So Doug's just wrong. Also, it is creepy. Like, this is just a sort of weird step. Like, I would really recommend, now that Doug is an American citizen, to start telling every cop that he encounters to thank him, you know, and also to be careful when they deal with him, because he pays their salary. Cops love to hear that. I mean, I think he'd be really excited to find out what their reaction is. And to me, this just sort of seems like the same thing. Like, oh, you got an education in an American institution. Well, you know what you need to do? Kiss my ring. Just goofiness.
If you're a conservative, if you're a conservative and you're talking to your progressive friends, your liberal friends, your left-leaning friends,
I think I may
ask
have
them this question: what's wrong with tax cuts for the rich?
Yeah, I went over this quite a bit in my other one.
Why did inflation go up in the first place?
Yeah, okay. You should go back to. Okay, so here's why I said he should go back to Canada. Canada, where you can do less damage because there's fewer of you. But in the United States, you're not going to be a good voter. You're not well informed. So he's not. Vote your values, dude. You should go back to Canada. So he puts this up there and it says Harris supporter to immigrant conservative U.S. citizen, which is him, right? When he refers to himself like that, part of me wants to just grab one of the Trump signs that says mass deportations now. Kidding. I'm just kidding. But it says go back where you came from. Hashtag wokeism. I'm not sure what the wokeism is there for. I want to point out to the thing that's right in the center of the screen. Those are the reasons that he said he was going to vote for Trump. One, immigration, which he doesn't understand. I've covered that ad nauseum. He thinks that multiple layers of several refugee crises are immigration. He's wrong about it. And the reason that those refugee issues are as bad as they are is because the government is already kind of leaning towards an approach towards immigration in general and refugee problems specifically that align with his kind of reactionary mindset, militarizing the border, catch and release, these kinds of things, sort of incarceration first. So immigration, like, okay, if he's voting for Trump on immigration, he's bad at that. Immigration was not a strong suit of Trump. He was willing to pay more lip service to it and try to get more money to pay for an actual wall. And actually a lot more people got hurt. And there were plenty of people that repeatedly came back in. So he didn't stop repeated crossings. If anything, repeat attempts at illegal crossings increased. He was a ghoul when it came to immigration. And remember, a lot of the ones that he tried to take on that were even more substantive were things like the so-called Muslim ban and these kinds of things, which most of which didn't hold up in court. They got challenged. 2, critical theory, not an issue. Critical theory is not an issue that you would vote on. And it's specifically critical race theory for him. I think he's leaving the race theory out because he made a short making fun of somebody about critical race theory, and it got pulled down. And it never got put back up. I never saw it again. If it did and somebody knows, I'd like to see it. So he doesn't understand that, and he won't. If he's interested, I've got the book if he wants to read it. He does not know what critical race theory is about. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter how many people like me will give some kind of like synopsis of it. It's just one ear and out the other. He wants it to be a thing. And as far as he's concerned, it's a thing that is of concern. And he can trust the conservatives when they talk about it. Foreign affairs. I don't know if anybody remembers the 4 years that Trump was in, but Trump didn't exactly score us a lot of points in foreign affairs. So, and then he says environmental. I think that was environmental issues when it popped up. Trump had a terrible record on environmental health and safety. So I'm going to stick by this. The point of telling him to go back home was more or less just to trigger him. But the point of that statement was to let him know that he's a shitty voter. He's going to be walking into that polling place or opening up his absentee ballot, and he's going to be voting with all of these ghosts and goblins, banging around in his noggin. And that informs him about what needs to be done in the United States. Things that either don't matter or aren't what he thinks. They're not real, right? The critical theory thing is not some kind of threat that a president needs to address, nor will that make any. That's just some culture war nonsense that conservatives pretend is like in the forefront. In the meantime, they're going to do the real work, which is making sure to outlaw as much birth control as possible, because they're really terrified of the country's demographics getting mixed. And don't try to tell me that that's not a thing. It's a thing. So anyway, that will probably take care of that. We'll stop that screen. We'll share up the another one, and we'll get this other one rolling. The open call then. All right. Okay. I think it's interesting he called me a Harris supporter. I don't think I identified myself as a Harris supporter. I don't know that he knows that I'm voting for. Do I know if I'm voting for? Well, I'm not voting for Trump. RFK Jr. No, I'm kidding. All right, here we go. Let's get this going. It's taking a toll. That's great news. Well, I mean, I might be exaggerating a bit. Good to see you, Barnaby Wild. I still have yet to see a list of public schools that teach critical race theory. Yeah. I mean, there's some public school. If by public schools you mean some state-sponsored law schools, they have it. That's pretty much what they have to rely on. They're like, well, you know how these libs work. They infiltrate the colleges, and then they work on their crazy magic and alchemy, and then they dispense that out in the form of textbooks to ensorcel the masses and their kids, turning them all into woke, lib, LGBTQI, vegan weirdos. You know. Meanwhile, we're taking serious claims that kids are dressing up as furries and needing litter boxes at public bathrooms. School bathrooms, I should say. Yeah.
I made 3 shorts this morning, not to wear, but on YouTube. And I mean,
Definitely work.
it's so fun watching woke progressives freak out about it.
Freak out how?
About questions like, why is it wrong to tax the rich? Get them to articulate it.
There are entire. I love how he says that he says this like he understands. Like there's just this missing. I don't know what it is, but I just can't. I can't hear an explanation about tax cuts for the. What's wrong with tax cuts for the wealth? Has anyone ever attempted to talk about it? Like, oh, I don't know. Only enough to fill a small library with books only on that subject, Doug. If you're truly curious, there is an enormous amount of ink spilled on the subject of taxing the wealthy or cutting taxes for the wealthy, specifically in order to bump up their wealth. I mean, if he doesn't hear an explanation in 30 seconds or less as a soundbite from a politician, then there is no explanation for the topic. This seems to be his issue. I find this staggering. How many people are watching right now? It's saying that there's actually 0 people here. That's interesting. I think StreamYard's breaking again. Let's see. I don't like keeping both on because it does tend to like affect my 56. Okay. Yeah. StreamYard is breaking, so I'll keep doing this until it eventually kicks me out or fails or something like it did last time.
Getting a young student to thank me for paying taxes. So
Doug knows that it wasn't sincere. Fabio says, tax cuts for the rich is wrong because of a very basic economic concept that they teach you here when you are 15. Marginal utility. Yep. But I bet if you had to take more than 30 seconds to explain marginal utility, Doug would be like, oh, eggheads. What I want to hear is that it's perfectly okay for people to keep their money. It's my money and I need it now. He wants like a slogan.
He can get federal grants to go to school. to get rid of this entitlement mentality. I mean, you can't do that. PineCreek Doug, stop it.
No one's telling you that you can't do that, but I think a lot of people should tell you that for comedy's sake, you should stop. You're hurting comedy. You're damaging humor.
Stop doing stuff like this. How dare you ask people to have good manners and thank upper middle class people for.
It is inappropriate to thank an individual for paying for their education when all you did was pay your taxes. When you pay your taxes and the federal government takes that money, it then becomes the federal government's money. Also, Doug, the fact that they took your money and then in the crudest of ways, right? Like Doug believes in the piggy bank revenue thing. They scrape money away from these hard working wealthy people, and then they went and spent it on a bunch of entitled college kids learning about, theater politics or something, whatever the kids are into right now. So Doug's like, I demand an apology from you woke, insensitive brats for helping subsidize your lifestyle. They'll call it that too. It's a lifestyle, as opposed to a full-time job you pay to do. And Doug knows this. He did this. What I would like to know, since Doug is a Canadian citizen, how much federal tax money did he take going to school here as an international student? Was he entitled to any? Did he get any benefits at all? Or did he pay for it all in cash? Now, he might say, well, no. I paid for the undergrad or finished an undergrad, but then I got a TA position or something like that. Oh, okay, a TA position at the University of Arizona. So you became a TA at the University of Arizona, a state-sponsored school that then subsidized your tuition for a master's degree. So you better thank me for paying for your degree, because I'm an American who was born here. I'd like to say I'm an American what was born here. And I've been working since I was 16 years old. So I don't know how much money this cat was making when he was, striving away in undergrad and his grad school, because I think he's got at least one master's degree. I think he has two. I think he said he has two, and it sounds like he was a TA. So all I got to do, okay. So a state school is paying you maybe a stipend. Maybe he got one. Maybe he didn't. He was an international student, but he was probably getting free tuition there if he was a TA. That's state and federal money, Doug. Thank me right now. Thank your lucky stars. You better thank the flag. Hug the flag like your hero Donnie would.
For paying most of the taxes in this country and providing for the needs of the poor. You shouldn't ask people to thank you. You have to do it.
See, this is what I mean by something's affecting him more than usual. And I don't know if it was a football to the groin, or, the wrong kind of kid came across his yard, or something happened, but there's something going on with him where he thinks like, this is the way college works. And this is the way society's going. They're just entitled. I know he's being half facetious here with this, because I really think he thinks he's walked into something that is like a raw nerve that he could flick at. But I really don't get what he's dealing with. Even most conservatives that I would talk to would probably think this is reaching a bit. Like, this is a weird take, man. I don't know if you want, like, most people, like, okay, if you are a business person and you can get bankruptcy or you can get other financial windfalls and protections and you take advantage of that, you're not considered an ingrate or entitled, even though the argument could be made that you are. You're considered savvy in business. It would be stupid of you not to take advantage of those programs offered to you at the state and federal level, sometimes even at a municipal level. Sometimes cities are doing that kind of stuff. But if a college student does it, he needs to be grateful to you personally because of your tax bracket, even though you biffed up on the idea that income taxes don't make up the majority of the tax revenue the government takes in annually anyway. It comes from corporations. The kid should go thank Starbucks. He owes Starbucks more of a thank you than he does to you, right? I guess Doug doesn't care where that goes to. He just wants one of these kids to like kneel and scrape. It's screwed up. Like he's doing some really weird work here.
You have to.
But let's see him workshop this on his own and see where he gets.
And it's my right to get money from you. Don't you know? This is the attitude. We got to get rid of this attitude. Right?
What attitude are you talking about? I would agree. The attitude that you have where you feel entitled to a thank you from one individual student who may or may not have received aid from state or federal governments that may have at some point been connected in any way, shape, or form in a fractional way to the income they drew from you in the form of your individual taxes. I'd be willing to say you wouldn't be able to track the pennies to it. But let's say that you even could. What percentage of Doug's upchuck into the tax system in the federal government made it to that kid's federal aid when he was going to college? If it's more than a nickel, I'd be surprised.
Have I heard of Planet Peterson? No, I haven't. He's a pretty good atheist debater. He's more of a Democrat, and he could be interesting to check out. If you know him,
I wonder if Doug would demand that Trump thank everyone he meets for all the money taxpayers paid out for his multiple bankruptcies. Yeah, right. I mean, Trump should be thanking everyone personally for all of the government help he's received, and the debt bailouts that he's gotten on top of that. The reason he wants to be thanked is because he feels that taxes are a gift that people do to the state, not a duty that they have as a citizen. It's his litmus test. Yeah.
Or know of him, get him to call in right now. I see Made by Jim Bob is live right now. I should call in his show. But then we'll talk about theism the whole time, which is boring. But if you want to call in, talk about theism, fine. If you want to call.
Yeah, please somebody call in and talk to Doug about theism. Get him on a topic that he's got some stability in. Not always, but a little bit. It's hard for me to fathom this mindset from him. I would assume that he is a student of critical thinking and a stable rationale. I'm surprised by this. Sad. Yeah, it's weird. Next time he raises the thank you thing, tell him that you would thank him when you receive a thank you note from a banker which was bailed out. Exactly. Yeah, I'll be sure to do that. And you know what? It would be interesting to get a thank you from one of those bankers that, one of the bailed out bankers, after those bankers would do things like during the pandemic, talk about how we need to get these ungrateful people back into working, or saying things like, that one hedge fund guy from Australia, we need to reestablish this relationship where people are afraid of losing their jobs and they're grateful that they even have one. This sort of like master on high with the whip, get to work, mules. Great attitudes, not entitled at all.
Call in, talk about economics, fine. This is a potpourri show, whatever you'd like.
This Doug trolling for call, yeah, I mean it is, but this workshopping thing, the fact that he made it he thought it was clever enough of a take that he did like a short on it about being entitled to a thank you, right? And that's how I'm going to tell it to everybody. This guy right here, this guy right here did a video where he felt entitled. He felt that he was owed a thank you by a college kid. Wouldn't let up.
I'm here to please. Remember that? What is that?
Good to see you, Pat.
Person's name? Imane Khelif? Is there any Muslims in here? How do you pronounce Imane? Is it Imani or Iman? Anyhow, you know that box.
He's concerned now about how to pronounce her name. He's done quite a bit of content on her.
Boxer won a gold medal in the women's category. I found an article that came out just 3 days ago. I didn't find it. Someone gave it to me on Discord. Of an insider, someone who worked on Imane's team, and basically verified that there was something off about her genetics and her testosterone. So maybe
This is interesting, right? Okay, so what he's talking about, there is a kind of there's a magazine in France called Le Point, and I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's Le Point, Le Point, and they had an interview with one of her trainers, and the trainer, they were talking about the different different regimens that they had and the training philosophy and this kind of stuff. Then they got into the whole thing with the IBA ban and the announcement that they had tested her and they'd found these things. And he talked about her reaction to it. And his take on it was that she was discovering this. She's being kicked out of this group and she's being told that there's something about her gender that she's never known before. Right? So she was really upset about this. He claims in the rest of the interview that he went to see an endocrinologist at a facility in France, and they did blood work on her to check things out. And the endocrinologist established that there were things that were, I guess, not normal relative to, I think, what they were supposed to be competing in, but that's always kind of tricky compared to what they're, what norm they're trying to reach. The thing that they said specifically, the endocrinologist said, was that there was something, according to the way that was translated, there was a problem with her testosterone and there was a problem with her karyotype. I think that was the way they put it. But she is definitely a female. She is a woman, right? I think he emphasized both terms. She's female. But something biologically might be going on. Maybe that's what triggered it. I think that was kind of where they were getting with this. But the tests conducted by the IBA, if they're to be believed, they don't know what they resulted in. So right-wingers are running with all sorts of interesting takes that require you to read that interview. The only way that you could read it and extract the same meaning from it that they're gathering from it would be, before you read it, to punch yourself in both eyes really, really hard. Then rub hot sauce on them. Struggle to read through this, through the mucus and the tears. And then after that's done, go get super drunk and see how much you can recall. I think after that, you would reach the conclusions they did. Conclusions like, she was despondent because she was finally found out. She knew all along, and yet she insisted on entering the ring. He insisted on entering the ring and abusing those poor girls at the Olympics. Takes like this. Takes that you cannot get from that interview. I left a comment on it saying, because he posted something about this himself. There's nothing like, he was actually doing a Discord thing. He was talking in Discord about it, and someone shared this article with him. And he's like, don't show this to Jefferson because he'll freak out about it. And he won't believe it. There's nothing in it that's difficult to believe. The problem is that there's nothing from it that would make you any more justified in asserting that Imane Khelif is a male. And watch Doug run with this conclusion right now. He's going to do it right now.
we should say his genetics and his testosterone. I don't know what to say. Do we say he, her?
She. Until you don't know, you go with she. Even the endocrinologist that this trainer mentions, it's like, yeah, there's no doubt that she's a female. But she does have some issues here. It doesn't even say that those are the issues specifically that the IBA had. The other thing that he points out here is like, they did find that there was something wrong with her testosterone. Well, that's interesting. Because while that had originally come out, and they said, oh yeah, her testosterone was too high. And she's a secret man. She's got an XY chromosome and jacked up T. They then came out during the press release that was really wonky at the IS, during the Olympics, and said they never tested for that. So for any of these conservatives who are not keeping track of how things are going, they're like, so they were right all along about the testosterone. Right all along. They can't even agree with whether or not they took a testosterone test or didn't. Their official stance now is that they did not test her testosterone. So if an endocrinologist is like, yeah, I see that her testosterone is a little higher based in the norms. It might be high for an average woman. That doesn't make her male. Doug's just enough of an ignorant sexist, and I think he's going to blame this on the fact that he's a farm boy and it's just his country roots. It's not. This is just dumb.
I just got to pick one and go with it. And there's so many.
You don't have to pick one. You can just go with she, since that's who she is. This is the only time. Notice that this is the only time you'll see him actually really fret about what their sex or gender is only in like, ooh, I wonder how. I guess I'll go with the one that offends the most in any particular setting that I end up in from now on.
So many people in the queer community, queer activists, who are desirous, I love that word, desirous for him to be a her. So
she is a her. What do they need to be desirous of? She's a her.
Everything's okay. But when it comes to women's sports, I got a simple solution again. We should change the names. Get rid of women's sports and get rid of men's sports and have female sports and male sports.
That's not going to fix the problem for somebody like, if any of the things stated about Imane Khelif were true, and right now we don't have anything that really supports it, right? We've heard that she could have DSD. There could be an intersex component to this. She might be an XY chromo female. She might have elevated testosterone relative to other women, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Taking man and woman off and replacing it with male and female, when you run into a situation like this, then you're still doing the same kind of thing. Let's say that he wants to do that. Like, okay, well, the female and male, we're talking about scientific. We're talking about scientific boundaries, scientific definitions. All right. So you want to leave those away from any social considerations like you would with man and woman. Great. What do you do with a woman who has an XY chromosome? Doug is going to look for all the scientists that agree to call that woman a man, despite the fact that that may be the only thing physically about her that is trending in that direction. Everything else that she's got has equipped her in the female persuasion. So at what point do you have weird, creepy guys like Doug sitting around in dark rooms cracking jokes about this and trying to figure out the percentage of what somebody's got below the belt and inside their guts? And then, of course, there's that intangible quality. Would I want to ask them out for dinner? So I'm pretty sure a serious component of what Doug's talking about, since he made a lot of comments about Khelif's looks on Discord, which don't have anything to do with the debate. But Pat says, I also read that article, and my big takeaway from it was 2 points. One, she and her coaches were unaware, but wanting to find out what was going on. Two, the doctor said she. Exactly. Those are the two most important points I took from it, especially given the fact that right-wingers on Twitter were running with this new narrative that she somehow knew all along, and that made her even worse. And that the doctors concluded that she's male. We see it now, and that's what Doug's excited about. Aha! She had problems with her testosterone. She had problems with her karyotype. Proof positive. She's a male. She was a secret man all along. That's not what the doctor said.
And then you're going to have people not identifying as women. They're going to identify as female. It's already started, people. It's coming. It's here.
What in the pluperfect hell is he talking about? It's already... Being able to identify yourself as man and woman, male and female, those are both useful terms. God.
Here. So not only is men, women social constructs, but now male and female are social constructs. It's here, baby. This is the insanity of it all.
I would agree there's insanity here. The insanity is reading an article like that and believing that you're more justified in making the claim that Imane Khelif is a male without any other knowledge at all. First of all, you're going with what is essentially hearsay. I mean, it's a little better than hearsay. It is one of her coaches. But the coach is giving this interview, talking about what he knows about the situation. Okay. In terms of like trying to settle like the stuff that Doug was excited about before, they'll put this on trial and then they'll get to the truth somehow. Well, this isn't going to do it. Like this guy could be misunderstanding the findings of it's very, very easy in just one person removed from a doctor's opinion for them to get it completely wrong. I work as a bureaucrat, and I can explain something to a member of the public, and then a day later find out that they talked to a coworker or another associate. And then the associate will say, well, this is how this person explained it to me, and they said they got that understanding from you. And find out that it's only about 20% of what I told them. And that 20% is still 80% wrong. That's fun math. So when it's something as complicated as endocrinology, and you've got one of the coaches like, yeah, so one of the endocrinologists said, well, this is this and this is that. But she's a female. Okay. These guys are like, well, that's not the part I'm concerned about. I heard the testosterone was an issue. Yeah. Verify my prejudices, please.
But the way you fight insanity like this is you tell the truth. You look them right in the eye, and don't worry if they feel bad and they call you a bigot, homophobe, racist, queer, whatever, queerphobe, whatever. Doesn't matter.
This would be fine if I believed that he was actually principled about this, but I don't get the impression that he is. This is well, you can look him in the eye and you can tell them the truth straight. I'm not convinced that he understands the truth. He's not capable of representing it. If he believes in critical thinking and he believes in being skeptical, then he should know how to represent the information that he got out of that interview from Le Point. But he's not able to do that. He got a few information pieces. He was able to feed those into his and confirm his existing bias, and now pretend that he's an arbiter of the truth. Because there's more of this stuff. There's more sounds out there happening that I can convert into talking points from my virtue signaling than there are for yours. Therefore, I'm winning because my narrative is growing. There's more of these sounds happening. The sound of testosterone, the sound of karyotype abnormalities, the sound of abnormal, any of this kind of stuff. It doesn't matter that the doc said female once, and that should definitively end it as far as that testimony goes. If you can even call it that. You can't even really call it that. It doesn't even rank with testimony. It's what a coach said, the doctor said. But Doug heard the other things like, aha, well, she didn't get a clean bill of health from the sounds of it, even though I don't think he knows how to represent what a clean bill of health is either.
Just say, hey, here's my definition of male, female, woman, man, and you don't fit my definition. If that makes you cry, go to your room for 2 hours and cry.
Your definition? What kind of a snowflake are you? Your definition? Don't you mean the definition? Isn't there a true definition, or is this just subjective, Doug? Oh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look them right in the eye and tell them, you know what? I know you say you're a man. You say you're a woman. You say you're non-binary, whatever that means. Well, I don't think so. I don't agree with what you're saying. Therefore, it doesn't fit my definition, so it's wrong. Is there any chance at all that attitude, first of all, isn't 110% entitled, and two, so completely full of shit as to render any critical thought almost irrelevant? If you're approaching anything with that attitude, you might need therapy to kind of get past that, or medication or something. Maybe ayahuasca?
Cry. But this article is from it's a French
Doug, definitions are descriptive, not prescriptive, which he would probably agree with, and then say, so my definition is just as good as any other definition out there. Like, no, it's not. If it's describing something that you came up with in your own head, it's not helpful. Or you just took bits and pieces and said, that's my definition now. He did this with trickle-down economics. Well, trickle-down economics was synonymous with the wealth factor. The wealthier people feel, the more likely they are to spend. That's not trickle-down economics. That might be a component of it, and to some degree, but that's not what trickle-down economics is. Trickle-down economics was the more wealthy people keep their money, they will then inject it into the economy in the form of private investment, and that will trickle down and create jobs and create capital and new ventures and all this kind of stuff. That's trickle-down. The wealth effect is very little to do with that. Other than like, well, what do? You make a wealthy person feel a little bit more wealthy, so they go out and open a factory, as opposed to doing what they usually do, which is hoard their money, shift it off seas, avoid some taxes, and maybe start a sweatshop in Bangladesh or something. I mean, he plays fast and loose with these definitions all the time, but now he's actually like really kind of. I like the squinty look he's given here. Like, it's my definition, so I don't have to care. Like, if he was going to try to do some kind of external critique where he was dealing with people who were activists on the other side who took this position, like we define our own truth our way and we define these own terms our way. To the best of my knowledge, the discussions that Doug has had in attempting to truly understand the other side, which is trans activists or just trans individuals, they don't even define themselves as activists. They're just trans people trying to get along. They just want to be able to live their lives. Doug goes into these discussions, and the ones that I've seen, they are trying to give him the best understanding and the most solid definitions that the medical community and the mental health community have. And Doug usually gives that look right there, like someone just, farted across the room from him, and then proceeds to engage in his insistence that his definition is just as good, if not better.
Magazine, Le Point. You're
from Manitoba, and you bring it up. Never mind.
The 2024 Olympics. Imane Khelif was devastated to discover out of the blue that she might not be a girl.
I'm interested to see how he's going to.
Publier le. How do you say 14 in French? 11, 12, 13, 14, Auguste, 20, 80. I don't know. How do you say 2020?
Somewhere a Babel app just exploded. It just threw itself, off a countertop, like power down
or something like that. It's pretty recent. First of all, here's my theory on all this. My theory.
All what?
Is that this person is indeed intersex, has some type of disorder.
Being intersex is not necessarily a disorder.
Mutation disorder.
She's an X-Man. So he's going to take on the position. Well, what we need to do is we need to make sure these mutants can't do
that. Cause comics. This person to be born without a penis, and so when you're born in the third world country without a penis, and then even in first world country, you assume female, right? But not so fast.
I mean, every country's got penis inspectors. Am I right?
So, like 1 out of 1,000 times it might not be. And
yeah, she was a magical baby, like a Laura Dannon and Willow, or
And I think that's the case here. And so
you think you. The point is, you have no idea. You don't know, Doug. This is just talking out of your ass, and you're trying to make a decision about what her future is as a competitor in boxing. And I'm pretty sure that where he's landing is, well, the best thing to do is to prevent her from doing anything like that until I'm satisfied she is what she says she is. Okay. Well, it sounds like, according to this trainer, she was disturbed to hear that she might not be who she felt she was, who she always assumed she was, which was a female and a woman. Fabio. As an Italian, I hate the French, but what he did to the French language was too much even for me. Agreed. Like, I mean, I don't hate the French, but I can definitely sympathize with the the hurt feelings, the hard sympathy, the hard feelings. But yeah, that was rough. Especially as somebody from, I mean, I don't think that if you're in Manitoba, you have much cause to use French, but somewhere there's a Québécois right now that saw that and was like, he can never return. Well, I'll talk about deep cuts. I'm surprised I remembered the name of the kid, honestly.
So raised as a female, but basically has, my guess, has internal testes, therefore producing lots of testosterone, and a development pathway that leads to being male, even though intersex. And I think that's what happened. And I think this person.
That's what happened? Really? Okay. The only reason that we're here, I can't believe I've got to say this again. The only reason that we ever got here was because the IBA decided to test her. And I think they tested her twice. And they would usually test her. This was one of the things the IOC had a problem with. The IBA was not under this, they were not running it the way PineCreek runs it. They didn't test every boxer. They had this really slick program built up where they test competitors based on complaints from other coaches. So if enough of them get to whispering in their sewing circle and cast enough aspersions your way, all of a sudden you find that the IBA is like, well, people are talking, so let's give you a test. And then they find this after the fact. Then they kick you out. One of the things that was interesting was that when she tried to, they made the argument, when she tried to dispute the testing, they were like, she signed for it. They made her sign for it before they gave her the test results. That came out later. So this is not a great organization. But Doug is really building a lot on the fact that, like, well, this is how it happened. I find it interesting that he has very little skepticism when it comes to accepting the claims of the IBA. Like, oh, no, why would they lie about it? Well, if they want to get rid of certain competitors, it's not like they have a reason not to. I mean, they can take a test, and then they can accuse that person of failing said test. And then when somebody asks, like, how are you testing them? They're just like, ooh, it's secret and hard, and you wouldn't understand the math. Go away. The most important thing is that there are no longer boxing anymore, right? Usually when you do treat a person that way, they're going to have an objection and be like, wait a minute, I'm not taking that. They start asking questions, and then the IBA is in a position to be like, well, no, we swear we tested her testosterone. Oh, no, we did not test her. We didn't. We did not check her testosterone. It's something else. It's something big. I mean, you wouldn't get it, but believe me.
Person's an average male boxer, which makes this person an elite female boxer.
She's elite. She had a record of 9-5. I don't mean the schedule. She had 9 wins and 5 losses in her divisions. I can't remember the name of if anybody knows the name, I think it was last year or in Tokyo. I think she lost to an Irish competitor in Tokyo. I read somewhere the comment was the Irish woman boxed her ears off, which is kind of old fashioned, but like, okay. And was a head shorter than her. So if Imane Khelif is all that is man, to borrow a phrase from Super Troopers, jacked up on testosterone and good old fashioned Vermont maple syrup. Not that she wouldn't know that. I think the Algerians hate maple syrup. But sorry to speak for an entire nation, folks. Maybe you love it. Shouldn't she have steamrolled the Irish woman who was significantly smaller than her? Doug is already veering into this territory. Well, she's got clear advantages, and it's not fair to let her compete. It doesn't seem like it's unfair. She's not winning overwhelmingly.
Not winning all the time, but way above average.
I think she's had 59 fights total, 147. Okay, that is a good record, but I mean, if you were to believe the fear mongering that these guys are laying out there, like, okay, this is a guy that just gets off on getting into a ring with women and beating them up. Well, we got to stop that. That's just unfair. Well, okay. What about the 8 or so women that beat her roundly? Should we test them? I mean, there's safety and knowledge.
Now, there's a guy named Jefferson Spatchcock who thinks this is all hearsay and we shouldn't.
Hey, that's me.
But why would they lie about this? I don't know. Le Point.
Wait, why would they lie about it, or why would the IBA lie about it? Because it seems to me like there's a real problem here. I can see how both sides would lie about this. What I noticed from Doug is that he is very much inclined to think that the IBA is telling the truth, and very much inclined to believe that Imane Khelif and her trainers and family, friend, whoever else, is hiding something. Or now that they know, playing games with the truth. Maybe they didn't know before, but now they do. And now they're trying to be clever about things. They don't want it to be true. They want her to be able to compete. They want her to have the advantage. It seems to be one of those narratives. Now, I could see the logic behind that, but you'd have to be able to be like, okay, let's assume that she didn't know this medically about herself, and then she's told this for the first time in 2023. By the way, you're not as female as you think you are. I mean, if you're a guy and you're competing and you find out, oh, it turns out you've got some things going on with you, either glandular sense, chromosome sense, whatever, that you are not 100% male, or you've got some kind of variation that kind of throws some things off. You don't think that would be a little bit affecting to you? Like that's not gonna mess with your head at all. But what we need to believe is that we need to believe that either she knew all along and she didn't know how to avoid getting trapped by the IBA with this test, which seems odd, or she didn't know until they did the tests, and now she knows, and now she's lying about ever knowing or knowing now. But what we should not be doing is thinking that the IBA would in any way, shape, or form misrepresent this truth or fudge things a little bit or take things out of context ever so slightly to kind of make themselves look, bigger, badder, more, well, we took real steps. We don't tolerate this kind of stuff. Given the fact that this is essentially a Russian organization now, run by a Russian guy, backed by Gazprom, its one and only founder, and given Russia's cultural antipathy, animosity to anything LGBTQ, what is more likely, if we're just going to speculate as to which side has more of an incentive to lie? I don't think it's unfair to say like they both might, but you have to do a lot more grasping, and you have to stretch a lot farther to try to paint Khelif and her team in some way that doesn't. They either have to be crafty and incompetent at the same time, or ignorant and abusive, I guess. Some strange combination of these two. I think it's probably more likely, if you're taking into account just like what's more likely here. We don't know what the claim is. We know what the claim is from the IBA. We don't know how they're substantiating it. There's no substantiation for the claim they're making. Their only substantiation is that they say they took a test. That's not substantiation. The test would be the substantiation. They won't show it. They claim that, well, the IOC campaigns for their countries wouldn't allow us, and the players won't, the competitors won't allow us, even though they went and announced the conclusions of the medical tests and say that's why we kicked them out of the IBA. Umar Kremlin came out and said they're men. And the other thing that's interesting too, Doug keeps talking about Imane Khelif here. This thing came out. He's not talking about Lin, the Taiwanese competitor who was subject to the exact same treatment. What are the odds they're going to find two intersex women at the same, almost at the same time? I believe they tested them at the Delhi match, and it turns out that both of those women, Khelif and Lin, favored Russian competitors. So you've got a pattern going on right there. That's a little bit suspect. But there's another new pattern that's emerging where none of the conservatives seem to have any interest at all in talking about Lin. Why not?
I'd ask, you helped prepare the Algerian boxer for the Paris Olympics? How did you two meet? And
He's going to go through
Jorge Cazorla, George. Is it Jorge? No, Georgia, whatever. Says, yeah, I was a teacher and blah, blah, blah. Didn't know much about boxing, but news, other things. Basically trying to help with the training. Yeah, you were asked to supervise her at the end of 2022. Were you aware of the conflict between the International Boxing Association and Imane Khelif? I found out while watching, can you guys see that? I found out while watching the videos of the World Championship in March 2023, she was disqualified from the final against a Chinese female boxer. At the time, I thought it was a matter of international and diplomatic disputes, but the decision was backed up by tests. This is not some Russian saying this.
Right. But consider, like, I think Doug thinks that when this guy says their decision was backed up by tests, that's the claim that he's hearing from them. He thought, and I don't understand why I have to explain this, he thought that there was some kind of diplomatic international fracas happening. And instead they're saying, no, they're disqualifying her because there's tests involved. Then he says here, honestly, I thought it was disgusting. Regardless of the results of these biological tests, and without going into the details, that's the biologist and doctor's business. This poor young girl was shattered, devastated to discover out of the blue that she might not be a girl, if the tests are true.
This is someone apparently, allegedly in her camp saying this, or his camp.
But notice what he's kind of doing here. He's not propping up the tests. Now, he's not coming out and saying that the tests need to be doubted necessarily, but he's also not saying anything about the tests being 100% proof of what the claims they're making. But this is a shocking thing to actually put out there. Like, no, we're actually disqualifying because we took a test and found out you're not all female. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is, like, in any of the narrative around this, he's saying that she was devastated about this because she's assuming this is true. Oh, they disqualified me because they found out something about me biologically that makes it so I should not, I guess I'm not qualified to compete in this sport. Clearly now she's like involved in an international lawsuit about what's been said about her. So I think things have changed a bit.
Honestly, I thought it was disgusting. Regardless of the results, these biological tests, and without going into the details, that's the biologist and doctor's business. This poor young girl was shattered, devastated to discover out of the blue that she might not be a girl. So it really sounds like this Georges, this Jorge, whatever you want to say, guy, an insider, saw these tests and saw, oops.
No, we didn't. We don't know that he actually saw the tests. I mean, we don't even have confirmation that Imane Khelif herself saw the tests. Do we? He's saying that their decision was backed up by tests. Yeah, they can just claim that it is. I mean, that's been enough for him. Doug is saying, like, well, wait, hang on, they made this decision. They took tests. Have you seen them? No. Why would they lie? Well, if they're making a claim as dramatic as this person is a secret male, that's gonna, I mean, that's a hell of a take, mostly because that it could be rare, and also because the IBA, I don't think, like the one thing, not making this into some personal grievance or something like that. The IBA doesn't want to, they want to be taken seriously, and they don't want to find out that maybe their standard for how they're determining this is going to get questioned by any international bodies. Yeah, I agree. Here he is being slimy, and he does get slimy about these kinds of issues, especially when he can like try to use this language to be like, well, it could mean it this way. Yeah, but it could just as easily mean it the other way. So the only reason that you're saying that, well, it definitely means it this way is because you want it to. Until you have some kind of confirmation, you don't know. And he started this whole thing of, well, I guess we have to call her he, like only if you don't understand how claims work.
Oopsies. He doesn't say XY here.
Oh, you could see,
Yeah,
you could hear
without
that he was
going into the
disappointed.
details. Fortunately, she can rely on her family, who live in a small town in Algeria. As for Imane, she was born a girl.
Would Doug apply this to Paul, saying 500 people saw the resurrection? I mean, why would he lie? There's tests.
She was raised a girl. Now, girl is a social construct. I need to remind people. Some people are not an expert in trans issues like I am, but these are social construct terms.
Okay, this is a conversation in an interview, and this man's words were translated from French to English. So Doug, famously not a huge fan of getting into semantic arguments, getting bored with them quickly, especially when he very quickly starts losing, now wants to say, well, this man is using the term girl. And that we know as a social construction. Do you know that George gets this? Is George actually using the word girl?
She has girl sensitivity. What is a girl sensitivity?
You'd have to ask George.
By this logic, why not test all the people whose abilities are superior to others? Well, when it comes to female sports, I'm actually okay with that.
Only in female sports? Wait a minute. What? So if you're a guy and you're competing, and all of a sudden, regardless of whatever your particular sport is, this new dude comes up and just obliterates everybody, and it doesn't matter what, you could use anything that you wanted, just blows everybody out of the water. Now I'm using an example of somebody who is disproportionately better than anyone else. You wouldn't want to know why that person is that good, Doug? You don't think? Not even to question whether or not they're, doping or something? I mean, that's the kind of outlier that can start to generate people's curiosity and lead to like, hey, how is it that you're beating absolutely everyone? Well, when it's girl stuff, no, I want to protect women from these trans folks. Oh, okay, because they're irregular and they're taking advantage of women. So this is just Doug's chauvinism taking over his rational brain. But if a true outlier competing amongst men was taking advantage of their natural advantages and just dominating the sport, and frankly just embarrassing all their fellow male competitors, the guys just have to suck it up because that's what men do. But women athletes need to be, I think, coddled would be Doug's take on this. That's interesting.
For instance, the French basketball player Victor Wembanyama, I know him. He's 7'4", rookie, first year for is it Houston Rockets? Yeah. Here's what people who are very sensitive to the needs of others don't get: that the disparities between men in basketball, for example, like this Wembanyama guy, he's skilled, he's huge, he's fast, he's just skilled, he's very good. But the difference between him and let's say LeBron James or other elite players in the NBA is not that big. Like they might have strengths in one area, but they might have different strengths in another area. But
he's talking about two superlative players, right? He's not talking about the number of people that are just kind of average players. I mean, they're at the NBA, so they're at the top of the game, but they're not all Michael Jordan. This is...
But the difference between males and females in sports is huge. This is what
and you should see that in Khelif's win-loss record, right?
The queer activists don't get just how big the difference.
The queer activists have nothing to do with this situation. The only thing the queer activists, the LGBTQ activists want out of this situation is for idiots like Doug to keep their group out of his mouth. I mean, Umar did a great job in doing this. He called Imane Khelif and Lin, the Taiwanese boxer, men. And dipshits like Doug and J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk and Donald Trump swallowed that shit and then went out and repeated the word trans to people. He didn't say she was trans. He didn't say either one of them was trans. He said they were men. At least once. I believe he doubled down on it.
Differences in speed, strength, agility. Now, are there exceptions in certain sports? Sure.
So if he's watched Imane Khelif fight, does he think that she could stand up to say someone in an equivalent category with men, in an equivalent weight category? I'm not exactly sure what the poundages are anymore. I think she's a middleweight. And I don't know what that range is for the women athletes versus the range for men, but I don't think you'd pair them off one-on-one. Middleweight to middleweight. The middleweight for men is going to be heavier. But does he think that she's going to, like, okay, we match them based on as much as we can biologically. Reach and weight. Now we find out. I mean, I don't know if Doug gets this, but like, I don't know how well she would do with that. Not only that, I'm pretty sure she would say she can't. She's not going to go in a situation like that. What I find interesting is that Doug, not knowing this, might be more inclined to see her go up against a man the same weight, but he thinks it's a travesty that she's fighting women in her weight class.
But in general, the difference is huge. Men are...
Well, he hasn't brought up the polling, actually. Good to see you, JL. If it's bothering him, he's just doubling down on the culture war stuff, because he's been talking about Imane Khelif here for a minute.
Dominant over women, superior over women. We need to drill these types of...
Okay, yeah. Okay, keep that in mind.
Big adjectives into the minds of the queer activists so they get it.
We should see huge disparities in her. She should just be dominating everyone, and she's not. He just said that we need to be thinking about it in those terms. Great. I am. I don't understand why she was tested. It wasn't based on her win-loss record. It was based on the fact that other coaches complained about her. And that is enough to trigger testing by the IBA. A process that groups like the IOC said, we're not cool. That's not a great metric to determine whether or not an athlete gets tested, is because other coaches are gossiping about them, or just cranky that their own person can't win. He's a culture warrior. Yeah, culture warrior from Canada.
So what happened?
Not the good kind.
After the thunderclap announcement? After the 2023 championship, when she was disqualified, I took the initiative and contracted a renowned endocrinologist at the University Hospital Kremlin, Bicêtre, in Paris, who examined her.
Just killing that language.
He confirmed that Imane was indeed a woman. Now, remember, woman is a social construct term. We're not talking about, we don't know about female. Now,
again, He's playing with semantics in a translated interview. I mean, we should be glad that this is not in the original French. He's not trying to read the entire thing in French, because if he tries to read a name, everything just piles up.
Now we get into the science. She was a woman despite her karyotype. What does that mean? It means she's probably an XY. And her testosterone levels. She's a woman despite she's XY probably and has high testosterone levels. He said, there's a problem with her hormones and her chromosomes, but she's a woman. Who cares if she's a woman or not? We're talking about female sports, not women's sports. Remember, I'm the dictator of the world. I've changed everything.
I hope you've made those changes aware to people who speak French and to the translators who translate that French into English, Doug. I mean, if you're going to be a benevolent dictator, you might want to be competent and comprehensive in your rulings. This is sad and stupid.
We're talking about female sports and male sports, not women and men's sports anymore.
None of that has anything to do with that. I'm going to get back into a little bit of the theology and philosophy stuff. This is basically taking, imposing an external critique on an internal critique.
I've been begging people to bet me real money on this.
For what purpose?
Yahweh seeker. Not you again.
Doug.
Yes, hi, welcome.
Hey, I can't chat right now too long, but I did want to call in and suggest that you call the line and talk to Forrest Valkai right now and talk science.
Who else is on? If Matt's on, they're not going to let me on.
No, it's not. It's some random guy. They just started, so.
What should I ask Forrest?
Talk about science. He's a big science guy. He loves science, and talk about trans. And
if you guys don't mind, I'm a little curious.
See if
he actually calls him. Scrubbing through, it looks like he does.
From the first surgery, that person with the higher LSAT would be the better surgeon. Then yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll let you go, Ida. Thanks for calling in.
Sylvie. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's see if the line's still going.
Actually, I think Matt Dillahunty has he will not speak to Doug. He pretty much hates him.
Go tell people that you're my servants and that I'm going to free the Israelites. And so Moses goes to do that. And literally the next line is that God attacks Moses and tries to kill him. And the only thing that stops him is that I think it's his wife comes out and quickly gives him a circumcision and throws his foreskin.
He's excited about the story. It's the best story in the Old Testament, next to Chemosh.
On his feet. Literally, God's like, go, my child, go do my will. Fuck you! And he just attacks him and starts killing. And the only thing that stops him is somebody cuts his dick. And he's like, oh, well, shit, now he's got his dick cut. I guess I'm not going to.
No. She circumcised their baby boy and tossed the foreskin at Moses, and it landed on either his feet or on his crotch. And that was enough, for Yahweh to be like, okay, I'm satisfied. It's the bloody bridegroom passage. And from what I understand, even if you talk to rabbis and stuff about this, they're like, yeah, we know you made it to that story, huh? We don't have any way of really describing. We don't know why it's there.
Going to kill him anymore. What is this God?
Other than it makes him sound like Seth Rogen when he's relating the story. And that's probably enough. If people get this enthusiastic about okay, so God goes to a bar to kill Moses. What's Moses doing at the time? Well, set up in that narrative, it looks like he's already been told by God to go to Egypt to free the Israelites. And now God's his anger has kindled against Moses, so he went to an inn with the intention of killing him. It's a hilarious story.
It's a madhouse, dude. Read the book. It's horrible. If you want to be an atheist, reading the Bible is a great way to get there.
Actually, Forrest is not wrong here. I mean, not the book like the Bible, but the book of Exodus. The book of Exodus raises a lot of questions for Christians.
Yep.
Sorry, I've been yelling for a minute. It's a terrible book.
No, you good, man.
I think I'm gonna end this now because I'm not seeing anything good here. I'm just watching Doug, watching Forrest, and I don't know what about this makes me feel more like a pervert.
Oof. Does God want to know him, us to know him? Yeah. I don't even know if they're talking. This is more for theists. It's like my theist Thursday.
Gets
But
into
who
a
knows? Maybe
conversation.
there's no theist calling in anyhow. Maybe I should call in and ask, do you have any questions for me? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?
I don't know. Is that a reference to something that I don't know? Actually, he's going to get into something.
Gotta love the hair,
gross.
though.
Uh-oh.
Is Jim Bob still going?
CERN wants to, yeah, CERN. I think that's a part of it, Dustin. I think CERN wants to get it out there to the Joe Rogans and the people doing hallucinogens still at 42 years old with their gray ponytail forming, that they are really catering toward that crew that wants to think that there's a reality that can be split. And I think CERN is actually.
I think I'd rather call in to this show than this show. Okay, anybody else want to call into this show?
I'm going to flash forward to something here. He did a
Yelling
short
because
on this.
theatrics are fun. Yeah, it was originally on the Bee Gees, Staying Alive.
So this thing, I guess Elon Musk started this and it kind of went viral. And when I first saw it was this short that Doug started sharing.
I thought
we'll end it with this because it reminded me of a video that I'll share after this is over.
Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Yeah, and then talking about the left, the differences between the left and right. Why is simply having people with dark skin?
My question is this: how diverse is the Republican?
Was originally on.
Why did that skip there?
Staying Alive, and I put it. I thought a better song would be this one. Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Yeah, and then talking about.
Okay, so that must have gotten him flagged then, because he cut that out. But if anybody hasn't seen that goofy ass, like they're dancing to Staying Alive, clearly AI. I think it was made with whatever cheesy named AI program that Elon's got called Grunk or Granny or what something like, I don't know what it is, Grundy's. So we'll just leave it at that. Taco recently obliterated Jim Bob. Not a hard task, of course, but quite funny. Yeah, I haven't watched all that yet. I'll probably tune into that sometime over the weekend. Looking forward to going over Jim Bob's video, Shit Talking Big Bad Mama, which will be happening with Maya in the near future. YouTube, Doug has fallen off. Well, I guess with that, I'm gonna stop the screen and share, in the spirit of lightening things up, a classic one that I personally love. Let's see here. If anybody can use AI to just put Elon Musk's and David Bowie's heads on these two characters in this mock-up, I think that would be a better viral video than the dancing one.
Calling out around the world, are you ready for a brand new beat? Summer's here and the talk is right.
For dancing in the street, dance Chicago.
On in New Orleans, in New York City.
I'm easily entertained. What can I say? And I think this video is like 12 years old at this point, but still, Still a classic, especially from the part coming up.
There'll be music everywhere.
They'll be singing, swaying,
records playing.
These guys could actually get away with doing this. Nothing that they're doing is dancing. They're literally just hopping around.
Dancing in the street.
Doesn't matter what you wear,
just as long as
Anyway, that'll do it. So watch that video if you can. It's a classic. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks everybody for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. If you got any suggestions or anything like that, email me over at jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com. Any recommendations or anything like that, I would be interested in getting them. Especially if any of you guys want a break from some of the PineCreek content that I've been doing. But like I said, I'm probably going to go back and revisit a couple, and I might be doing this one tomorrow. The conversation that he had with Paul and Eric, Skeptics and Scoundrels, on the line last week. There were some interesting points that kind of came up there, and I don't know, might be worth a visit. And it's a short one. He's only on there for like 28, 29 minutes. So check that music out. I mean, check that video out. I missed it, and that was something that probably was on like E-Bomb's World back in the day. But I missed it. My uncle actually showed it to me, and I was like, this is genius. And it's not the best one. There's a Chuck Berry one that I think is better, and a couple Elvis ones. So Doug has to do something about his hair. He's really looking like a withered baby Herman. Oh my God, you're right. Why didn't I think of that? Well, thank you, J.L. Warren. I'm going to be exhausting that resource for the next few thumbnails going forward. So, all right. Well, as usual, thank you everybody in the live chat for keeping things fun and keeping things moving. Like I said, I will be back probably later on. I will be out of work for a few days, so I'm just going to be doing whatever. So if I start popping up in random streams, that's why. So, yeah, I really, for some of you, I may be threatening you with a good time. For others, I may be like, encouraging you to like drown your phone. So it's a warning and maybe a promise of good things to come. It just sort of depends on how you take it. So with that, I'm going to get out of here, and I will be back again, probably with some more of this stuff. I am still trying. I should put the word out now before I sign out. I ran into Darth Dawkins. I think he's got 2 accounts on TikTok, and he was on there doing a live thing. I can barely get in there and say hello before he or one of his flying monkeys usually boots me. I don't know how good the content is because I'm never there long enough. I'm not allowed to be. It just seems like kind of the rehash stuff that's going on. But he seems extra quick to crankiness over on TikTok. Like he's dialed up. He's going in at a 9.5, ready to jump to 11. So if anybody, I'm not saying you have to. Please don't feel obligated. But if you do find him on TikTok, I don't know how you record stuff on TikTok, but like if you see anything on there and you want to pass on some info, let me know, because it's been a while. I'm kind of wondering, somebody asked me if he was even still around anymore. I'm like, yep, he is. He just kicked me out of a TikTok live stream just a couple days ago. So he's doing exactly the same as he always was. Hey, if you want real horror, I tagged you in something in my Discord. Uh-oh. Let me check it now. Is it in the horror chat or horror news or announcements? Oh, yeah. Let's see. All right. Is this going live? Yes, in a half an hour. In a half an hour, J.L. Warren of Bridge the Divide is going to be doing his Week in Horror. I was going to say, I forgot that you were doing these on Wednesdays. I was starting to think that you were doing these on Thursdays, but it makes more sense now. work days, man. They get blended together. But I'll post the link in here. Somebody probably already did. But. All right, folks. If you're interested in horror movies, the Week in Horror podcast is coming up in about a half an hour, so go check that out. I will be checking it out a little bit later. I'll be listening in, so yeah, go check that out. I'm really kind of pissed that I missed that. He was covered Blade and Darkman. Shit. Wait, and Piranha 3D? Oh man, that was a great date. But yeah, go check those out. So, oh, I tagged you. It's in the horror chat. It's a vid that I uploaded. It's not the podcast. Oh, okay. Well, his podcast is still going live in about 26 minutes. So if you're interested, go check that out. And I am going to get out of here. Thanks, JL. I will go check that out now. For everybody else, have a great night. I will see you later, hopefully sooner rather than later. And yeah, take care of yourselves. See you later.